So, be honest.
Yeah.
Did you delete ChatGPT this weekend?
I mean, a lot of people did.
Right? Or, maybe you were one of the few who somehow missed the massive digital revolt that completely took over the internet.
It was everywhere.
It really was.
Hmm.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take the absolute fire hose of information out there, distill it down, and bring you the insights you actually need to know.
Exactly.
Today, we are looking directly at you, the listener, and asking if you found yourself caught up in one of the most sudden, aggressive user exoduses we have ever seen in the tech sector.
Unprecedented, really.
It was. It was a weekend that caught the entire industry completely off guard, and the market is still very much processing the shockwaves.
It was a highly disruptive few days, to put it mildly. For today's deep dive, we are pulling from a really comprehensive piece of source material.
It's a great piece.
It is. It's titled The Ethics and Fallout of the OpenAI Defense Contract.
Huge topic.
Right. And our mission today is to unpack the rapid, dramatic fallout of this multi-billion-dollar tech military deal. We're going to look at the underlying data behind the user backlash.
The numbers are wild.
They really are. And we'll look at the contrasting corporate strategies at play and ultimately explore the overarching question: who is actually steering the future of artificial intelligence?
That is the big one.
It is, because as the source material breaks down, the governance structures we assumed were in place might be, well, far more porous than anyone realized.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the metrics coming out of the weekend are just striking.
Absolutely striking.
According to the data highlighted in our source material, we didn't just see a temporary dip in daily active users.
No.
Or like a trending hashtag on social media. We saw a nearly 300% spike in ChatGPT uninstalls across major app stores.
300%.
A 300% spike.
Yeah.
Users didn't just close the tab. They actively navigated to their device settings, selected the application, and purged it from their hardware.
Which takes effort.
Exactly. That points to a definitive user revolt, where a massive demographic simultaneously decided, you know what, we are done. We are completely severing our data connection with this platform.
And that kind of localized, immediate hardware purge, it's a profound indicator of broken trust.
Right.
Especially for a tool that has become so deeply embedded in daily professional workflows. People rely on this.
They use it for everything.
Exactly. So by Monday morning, the market reaction was severe enough that Sam Altman had to publicly address the situation.
He had no choice.
The source material details his statement, describing him as approaching the public essentially hat in hand.
Wow.
Yeah. But the focal point of that address, and really the catalyst for a lot of the subsequent industry analysis, was his characterization of this highly complex defense integration.
Yes.
He referred to the execution of the deal as sloppy.
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 See, the choice of that specific word is what I find so jarring.
It's unusual.
Very. When you look at the standard vetting processes for defense procurement, take Palantir's early CIA contracts, for example.
Right.
Or the stringent requirements of standard FedRAMP certification. The administrative and legal scrutiny is typically exhaustive.
Months and months of work.
Exactly. Military integrations of this scale usually involve extended periods of rigorous auditing, data siloing protocols, rigid compliance frameworks. Everything is locked down tight.
To the letter.
Right. So for the CEO to characterize the foundational execution of a major military partnership as sloppy, that suggests a significant departure from standard defense sector protocols.
It implies a highly reactive, almost chaotic environment behind the scenes of a technology that inherently demands absolute precision.
Yeah.
And this is something for you, the listener, to really consider.
Think about this.
What does it mean when the primary infrastructure you rely on, whether you are synthesizing sensitive corporate data, organizing proprietary code, or drafting strategic communications?
Everyday tasks.
Everyday tasks. What does it mean when those tools are governed by corporate agreements that the creators themselves admit were handled carelessly?
That's terrifying.
When users interface with a generative AI, they're operating under the assumption that the underlying data governance is heavily vetted.
And strictly compartmentalized.
Exactly. Altman's admission fractures that core assumption entirely.
It does. But to play devil's advocate here for a second, doesn't a company like OpenAI have a fiduciary responsibility to capture these massive defense budgets?
Well, the money is huge.
Right. The compute costs for training next-generation models are astronomical. We know that.
Billions.
So perhaps the sloppiness was simply standard Silicon Valley startup speed, the whole move fast and iterate ethos.
Sure.
And that ethos is just clashing aggressively with slow, traditional defense bureaucracy. Is it possible the public is overreacting to typical corporate growing pains?
That is the exact tension the source material explores. Yes, the financial burn rate for training frontier models necessitates massive revenue streams.
They need the cash.
And defense contracts are historically the most lucrative avenue for that. However, the scale and the stakes of Department of Defense integration break the traditional move fast and break things model.
You can't just break things in the military.
Exactly. The source argues that when a platform transitions from a consumer productivity tool to critical defense infrastructure, the tolerance for iterative, fix-it-in-post governance drops to zero.
Right.
A sloppy update to a consumer app means a temporarily broken feature.
Annoying, but fine.
Right. But a sloppy integration into a defense intelligence network introduces systemic vulnerabilities.
Life or death, potentially.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because OpenAI wasn't operating in a total vacuum during this procurement process.
No, they weren't.
They didn't just spontaneously generate this military partnership out of thin air. The source material lays out a very specific pre-existing vacuum that they stepped into.
A very deliberate one.
And that vacuum was created by Anthropic, the company behind the Claude models.
The hidden context of this deal is crucial to understand.
Yeah.
In the lead-up to this defense contract, Anthropic was actively engaged in the preliminary discussions.
They're in the room.
They were, but they were ultimately sidelined and literally blacklisted from the integration.
Kicked out.
Kicked out. And the reason for that exclusion is the pivot point of the broader industry narrative. Anthropic drew a strict, non-negotiable boundary.
A hard line in the sand.
Yes. They categorically refused to permit the development or integration of their models for autonomous weapon systems.
Which is a massive decision. Walking away from a multi-billion-dollar defense contract over a specific usage clause requires a very rigid internal governance structure.
It does.
And I want to be clear, for you listening, we are looking at this strictly through the lens of corporate strategy and market dynamics.
Absolutely.
We are not taking a moral or political stance on military contracts. The Department of Defense has a clear strategic mandate to modernize its intelligence and operational capabilities using advanced AI.
They need the tech to stay competitive.
They need the technology. But Anthropic evaluated the integration requirements, looked at the specific stipulations regarding autonomous targeting, and determined it violated their internal constitutional AI frameworks.
So they held their boundary.
They held it. And as a result, they were blacklisted from the procurement process entirely.
What's fascinating here is the sheer velocity of the subsequent market capture.
It was so fast.
The moment Anthropic was exiled from the discussions, OpenAI moved to absorb that market share immediately.
Swooped right in.
They saw a lucrative partnership and a strategic opportunity to deeply entrench their infrastructure within the defense sector. So they accepted the integration parameters that Anthropic had structurally rejected.
But then reality hit.
Yes. The source material highlights the immediate operational whiplash that followed.
Right.
OpenAI secured the contract, but almost immediately encountered the intense friction of what it actually means to integrate generalized commercial AI models into classified, high-stakes military frameworks.
It really makes you wonder about the technical differences between the two companies' models that led to this divergence in the first place.
It's a key distinction.
The source material touches on Anthropic's reliance on constitutional AI, where the model is essentially hard-coded to refuse certain parameters.
Right, making it technically stubborn for defense applications that might require lethal targeting analysis.
Exactly. It just won't do it. OpenAI's alignment models, on the other hand, seem built to be more modular.
More adaptable to the client's needs.
Yes, adaptable.
Yeah.
But clearly, that adaptability came with a massive blind spot regarding public perception and data security.
A huge blind spot.
Which brings us to the most critical part of Altman's Monday morning response.
The backpedaling.
The frantic backpedaling.
According to the analysis in our sources, Altman and his executive team are currently scrambling to amend the original terms of the agreement.
After it's already signed.
Yes. They are not just tweaking administrative language, they are hastily attempting to bolt on entirely new clauses.
Like patching a leak.
Most notably, they are rushing to explicitly insert language that dictates no domestic spying.
I want to dig into the technical realities of that for a moment, because the fact that a no domestic spying clause has to be retroactively added implies something pretty alarming.
It implies a lot.
It implies that in the original framework of the deal, The technical pathways for domestic surveillance utilizing these AI tools were left completely exposed.
Yes.
How does that actual mechanism work? If an AI model is functioning as an analytical tool for the military, how does it inadvertently cross the line into domestic data surveillance?
It all comes down to data ingestion.
Okay.
And the lack of strict siloing between public APIs and classified networks.
The walls weren't high enough.
Exactly. The source material details the role of Palantir in this integration.
Right, Palantir is involved.
Palantir operates by creating complex data ontologies, essentially mapping massive, disparate lakes of information.
Pulling from everywhere.
Yes. If you deploy OpenAI's reasoning engine on top of a defense data lake that also ingests open source intelligence or global query data, the risk of cross-contamination is severe.
It all mixes together.
Without rigid, pre-established data firewalls, the AI can seamlessly synthesize public user inputs with classified defense parameters.
Meaning your queries could end up in a military analysis.
Exactly. The retroactive scramble to add a no domestic spying clause is essentially a frantic attempt to legally mandate data firewalls that should have been technically engineered into the system from day one.
So what does this all mean?
It's a mess.
We have Anthropic company whose architecture fundamentally resisted these defense applications, completely removed from the board.
Sidelined.
We have OpenAI, who captured the market but admits their integration was sloppy and is now trying to legally patch technical vulnerabilities regarding domestic surveillance.
Right.
And sitting in the middle of all of this, architecting the actual deployment, is Palantir. And they are officially running the war room now.
This raises an important question. Who is actually auditing the underlying infrastructure?
Who is watching the watchers?
Exactly. If the foundational oversight is this reactive and the technical safeguards are being implemented after the contracts are signed, can enterprise and everyday users trust the architecture?
It's hard to see how they could.
We are in a phase of rapid, unprecedented technological deployment. Generative AI is being simultaneously woven into global defense systems and the mobile devices in our pockets.
Just everywhere all at once.
The tension between the financial imperative to deploy rapidly and the necessity for robust, secure governance has reached a breaking point.
And the data from this weekend suggests that the public's tolerance for that tension has completely evaporated.
It's gone.
For the last few years, users gave tech companies incredible leeway. The models were novel, and the market accepted that the developers were iterating in real time.
It was an experiment.
Right. But the transition from a consumer productivity novelty to a core component of defense intelligence fundamentally alters the user agreement.
It changes everything.
You cannot iterate in real time when the data involved intersects with national security and domestic privacy.
The stakes are too high.
The 300% uninstall spike wasn't an emotional overreaction. It was a rational defensive maneuver by users who realized the data guardrails they assumed were protecting them were in fact an illusion.
The source material argues that this marks a permanent shift in the industry's operational dynamics.
How so?
Well, the friction that tech companies have historically avoided through opaque terms of service agreements is now manifesting as direct user action.
Voting with their hardware.
Yes. When a company signals a lack of control over the protective elements of its own dual-use technology, the market responds with immediate capital and data flight.
They just leave.
This is a harsh reality check for an industry accustomed to operating with maximum speed and minimal regulatory oversight.
Which connects this entire geopolitical, multi-layered narrative directly back to you, the listener. The reason this matters, whether you are managing an enterprise server, researching a project, or simply organizing your daily schedule, is because the platforms you rely on are tethered to these massive decisions happening in defense war rooms.
It's the same plumbing.
You are operating on the same foundational infrastructure. But what the data from this digital revolt proves is that users still possess undeniable leverage.
The user has the power.
Market share is ultimately determined by trust. When a critical mass of users withdraws their data and forces a hardware purge, the executives steering these platforms are forced to pause, step into the light, and answer for the architecture they are building.
To synthesize the core insights from our source material today, we examined the rapid fallout of a highly lucrative yet poorly executed defense integration.
Very sloppy.
We analyzed the strategic divergence between Anthropic, who structurally rejected the parameters of the deal, and OpenAI, who captured the vacuum only to face severe operational whiplash. We explored the technical vulnerabilities that led to the frantic, retroactive implementation of domestic privacy clauses. And finally, we looked at how a massive, coordinated user revolt served as a hard check on the unchecked deployment of dual-use AI infrastructure.
The power dynamic between the developers of these frontier models and the users who fuel them has fundamentally shifted.
It will never be the same.
And the market will be adapting to the realities of this weekend for a long time.
It will require a complete reevaluation of how we govern dual-use technology.
Yeah.
And as we conclude today's deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over on your own.
Okay.
We have just examined the massive public fallout that occurs when a widely used consumer platform rushes into a defense integration, allowing users to actively protest by deleting the application.
Right.
But what happens when the next major leap in artificial general intelligence occurs entirely behind the closed doors of a classified war room environment? If the next breakthrough is developed exclusively as defense infrastructure, never reaching the public domain to begin with, and there is no app on your phone to uninstall, what does a user revolt look like then?